Quick podcast rant. News has come out this week that the United States Marine Corps is finally upgrading their bolt-action sniper rifles. And unlike some of the other services that are taking their 308 guns and going to AR pattern rifles, it looks like the Marine Corps has decided to go to a long-action Remington 700 and 300 Winchester. And I guess a lot of the cool kids and maybe fanboys of the precision rifle community are all up in arms because all of their pet calibers are not being picked, and they don't seem to understand kind of how the military works, and especially the least well-funded branch of the military, United States Marine Corps. 30 Nosler's been out for 5 minutes, and 26 Nosler, and I know that there's been a lot of testing with 300 normal Magnum, and SOCOM has been possibly looking at 6.5 Creedmoor or a 6.5 of some kind. And, that's all great. But, the Marine Corps itself is a regular branch of our service. And they have to kind of live within, the architecture of the Department of Defense. And what a lot of people don't seem to understand is that 300 Winchester Magnum has been in the DOD system, I am sure, since the early 80s, and it was even used somewhat successfully in Vietnam. So, especially with technology and, a lot of other things that are changing. For example, I know there's some people out there that are taking some 30 caliber bullets, and instead of casting them or however they normally make them, they're actually turning these on a lathe, and they have such a high ballistic coefficient. They're pushing these 30 caliber bullets into territory rivaling 338 Lapua. I didn't say surpass it, but it's very interesting what's kind of happening out there. And finally, when you think about the Marine Corps change, I guess they're going from the M40, I guess maybe it's the A6 iteration, and they're going to something called the Mark 13, which came out of Crane. Surprise, Department of the Navy. A lot of people, they don't realize that long action guns, some people say long action is less accurate than short action because maybe there's a rigidity issue. I think that is gilding the lily. I think the real kick against a long action is a lot of times people, depending on how the gun is set up, you got to break your cheek weld to cycle the bolt. Well, with a lot of the chassis systems today and cheek pieces that are rising up and adjustable, that's not really so much an issue because you're raising your cheek piece up and the bolt can kind of clear a little bit under the cheek piece. And while that doesn't seem like a high-speed, low-drag kind of thing, actually in the real world, that's a pretty big deal. So also consider long tail here, okay? If the Department of Defense as a whole is moving all their 308 length cartridges to AR pattern rifles, there's still going to be a place for a bolt action gun, and it makes some sense to keep a long action in the system in case a new boutique caliber comes down the pike in 3 or 4 or 5 years. So in summation, if you are at the Marine Corps schoolhouse and you have a need to shoot beyond 800 yards and you want to upgrade your guns, and you have a choice between 30 Nosler, 30 Mall Ninja, or 300, whack 'em in the ass, or good old standard 300 Winchester Magnum that's in the Navy system, surprise, that's what they're going to go for. So anyway, that's all I got to say about that.